Welcome back to Outside Views. Today we're diving into a political development that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Germany is now openly urging the United Kingdom to consider joining a customs union with the European Union. And while this may sound like a purely economic topic, it carries huge political weight. It challenges post-Brexit red lines, it exposes the fragility of Britain's current trade network, and it forces us to ask whether Brexit is now being quietly but steadily undone from the outside in. But now even some of Britain's closest allies are suggesting the UK needs to soften its stance, because the cost of Brexit are mounting and the benefits are nowhere to be found. Germany's ambassador to the UK, Miguel Berger, recently made headlines with his comments at the British Chambers of Commerce. He suggested that Britain could follow a model similar to Turkey, a country that has maintained a customs union with the EU for more than 2 decades. And his exact words were, that would obviously also be a way to move forward, which would ease many things in the trade relationship. And that suggestion put Germany directly at odds with the official UK government position. Labour's Brexit spokesperson Nick Thomas-Symonds has stated clearly, the UK has a mandate for a reset with the EU, but it will not rejoin the single market or the customs union. Yeah, listen well. So the message from London is partnership yes, realignment no. But here's the problem. Without realignment, especially in trade and customs, the UK's relationship with the EU remains shallow, bureaucratic and costly. The Trade and Cooperation Agreement, the so-called TCA, is broad, but not covering everything. It introduced trade barriers where none existed before. It created endless paperwork, and it imposed rules of origin checks, SPS controls and border frictions. It left services, the UK's largest export sector, barely touched. And Miguel Berger didn't hold back. He called the TCA the most sophisticated agreement of its kind, but also said that its full potential hasn't been realized. He called for deeper ties, more direct business-to-business collaboration, and practical steps to reduce red tape. One of those steps, he argued, could be a customs union agreement. Now let's be clear. A customs union is not the same as rejoining the EU. And it's not the same as rejoining the EU customs union either. There's a difference between being in the EU customs system as a member state and having a customs union agreement as a third country. For example, Turkey has a partial customs union with the EU, but it's limited. It only covers industrial goods and some processed agricultural products. It excludes services, raw agricultural goods, and doesn't remove all border checks. Crucially, Turkey must follow the EU's external tariffs on many goods, but has no say in setting those tariffs. It's a rule taker, not a rule maker. And that's the trade-off. If Britain pursued a similar arrangement, it would ease trade in some areas. But it would also involve aligning with EU tariffs and rules, without having a vote in how those rules are made. It would mean regaining some frictionless access while surrendering a measure of autonomy. And that brings us back to the political core of Brexit. Because the entire argument for leaving the EU was built on sovereignty, control of laws, control of borders, control of trade. But the more the UK tries to exercise that control, the more isolated it becomes. The more frictions it creates, the more costs it imposes on its own businesses. Even now, UK exporters face delays, higher costs and lost contracts. Small businesses can't afford the bureaucracy. And supermarkets, they struggle with supply chain checks. And farmers face new rules for exporting animals and produce. The dream of global Britain has given way to a daily grind of customs declarations, lost competitiveness and economic stagnation. And Germany's call for a customs union is a recognition of that reality. It's not about politics, it's about practicality. It's about reducing costs. It's about restoring something, like normality. And it's about preserving what's left of economic cooperation in a fractured landscape. The timing is also critical. The UK and the EU are set to hold their first formal summit on May 19th, and Berlin wants concrete proposals from London, particularly on veterinary and SPS agreements, deals that would reduce border checks on food and agricultural products. And Germany believes such a move would help British consumers. It could reduce supermarket prices. It could stabilize supply chains. It would be, in Berger's words, good news. The bigger picture is clear. The UK's current setup is not working, and even its allies are beginning to suggest changes. Not because they want to humiliate Britain, and after the negotiations that time some would have a reason to, but because they want to fix a broken system. And a customs union deal might not solve everything, but it would signal a shift in tone. It would open the door to broader cooperation. It would ease trade in sectors like automotive, pharmaceuticals and chemicals as well. And it might even pave the way for more ambitious agreements in the future. And this is not joining the EU again, but it would be a step away from isolation, a step toward rebuilding trust, and a step toward restoring economic common sense. But politically, it's radioactive. The UK government can't be seen to reverse Brexit. And even Labour, despite its overwhelming lead in the polls they had when they won the election, won't go there. They talk about resets, they talk about stability, but they don't talk about customs unions. They fear the backlash. They fear the headlines. They fear being labeled as Brexit traitors. And so Britain remains stuck, hemmed in by its own red lines, bound by a deal that isn't working for them, while even friendly nations offer a hand, hoping London will have the courage to reach out. And Germany's message is simple. There is another way. Well, it's not perfect, it's not easy, but it's better than the status quo. And for a country that once led Europe, it's a tragic irony that now it can't even lead its own trade policy without tripping over the Brexit narrative. And that's the reality. And it's one more reason why Brexit wasn't a bold step into the future. It was a retreat into fantasy. And even Boris Johnson's closest allies on the continent can now see that. So, what do you think? Should Britain consider a customs union with the EU? Is it a betrayal or a much needed correction? So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below the video. And if you value this kind of deep dive, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Outside Views. And that's where we look past the slogans and into the substance. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. And one of those videos is right here in the end screen.